I'm Michael Falk. I'm the director of music at the Banff Center. A new Albertan, so to speak. It's my first time identifying as an Albertan. Thanks. And so I'm going to introduce our panelists, and we're going to go on a little journey through festival planning. This is Sarah Harris from Lawnya, Vawnya, Eric Gilbert from Treefort. And we're going to, I figured I've got a few kind of prompting questions for us, and then we'll open it up for questions afterwards. So we'll try to like not take up too much time up here. We'll see, or we'll take up all the time, and then hopefully have lots of time for questions on festivals. Do each of you want to tell a little bit about yourselves and what you do and the festivals you make?
Sure. So I'm Sarah Harris. I'm the programming director for a festival called Lawnya, which is in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, the most easterly city in North America. And we do a 4-day festival of music, creative art, readings. We do like one film screening, and it's like a multi-venue festival, really community oriented, and it's a lot of fun.
Eric Gilbert in Boise, Idaho, which is pretty close to here, closer than most places, I think. And I co-founded and run a festival there called Treefort Music Fest, and we're also a multi-venue, multi-discipline festival, and we're going into our 14th year. And both of us are musicians as well, come out of the DIY touring world, and now on the curation side as well, still playing. You're still playing too, right? And so I know for us, and I get the sense of yours too, like Treefort was really founded on this sense of like being like a festival for artists by artists, and then we invite the public into that. That's kind of how we think of it, and have been pretty successful of converting people into going and watching a bunch of bands they've never heard of is the way they look at it. But so that's kind of what we're up to. Yeah.
Cool. That springboards questions for me already about community building and trust and audience development. Maybe we'll get to that in a sec. Maybe a little bit about me. I moved to Banff from Winnipeg. I spent a few years programming and producing for the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. Produced the Jazz Festival in Winnipeg for a number of years. The Jazz Festival in Winnipeg is a bit more, like I feel like in Alberta you have to quantify it a little bit, because here the jazz festivals are very traditional jazz. Ours is a little bit more like Toronto, like Montreal's or Vancouver's, where I was booking Common and No Name and Daniel Caesar and stuff like that. Also played in bands and toured and DIY'd my way into debt and like the rest of everybody. But ran a studio and a little label and had a lot of fun doing all of that. And so find myself also still making music. But it's different now than it was. So, so maybe that first question is, like, let's talk about community, and let's talk about trust. And, if you're, and I think, I know a little bit about both of your lineups, kind of poked a little bit, and you're not booking massive headliners, and you're engaging with, and you're asking the artists to then trust your curatorial taste and that relationship with the experience that they're going to have. Can you talk about that process? What's wins and losses in there? What those relationships get built like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my plan for explaining like our point of view was just to establish like the context where we're booking from, because it's going to be very different in St. John's than it is in Toronto, as I've discussed with some people already. So our context is we are, like I said before, on an island on the east coast of Canada. It could be very expensive to get there. It could be very expensive to leave. But as a consequence, we also have this very rich, thriving music community of people that live there and create there. And so our role to support that can be seen as kind of like paying the bill for people to come and like join us in that and get connected with our community that otherwise is like difficult for them to leave. And we're like, we're not on a touring route,
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's sort of the context. Forget the rest of the question
I
now.
guess what was your process within your community to build trust in the artists you were booking? Like if you're not booking large names that they already know, what was that process like to build those connections and that kind of curatorial trust?
Right. I don't know, just booking good shows, I guess.
Yeah.
Starting with that, like for me, so Treefort was solving a couple problems, kind of different than being on as far east as we are on touring routes. But historically, Boise was not that good of a market for people, particularly lesser known bands, right? And so coming out of the touring world, where I toured out east a lot, where there's a lot of things close to each other, always fascinating to me that people tour out west at all or tour middle of Canada for that record. And and so for us, our proposition. So the other thing, one thing I loved about multi-venue festivals and played a lot leading up to that is being in the touring community. It's a community of its own, and it's relatively small. But we mostly just see each other's posters at the venues that we either just played at or going to play at soon. So I loved multi-venue festivals because that was the time that all of us touring bands all got to hang with each other, see each other's shows, and talk shop and stuff. And so part of that was wanting to host that in Boise. I think Boise would be a good host for that, but also having a local community there that was disconnected from the external music industry. And so it was an opportunity to bring that to a town, build community in that sense too. And so that initial year was really like, to the local scene is like, we're going to lift the local scene up, and to the external scene is like, let us help you build Boise as a worthwhile stop. And then in that first year, also I was close to the Built to Spill camp, and then every call was like, Built to Spill is going to play. I'm like, oh, I want to come play. Then cool. So that was kind of as far as how to entice them to give it a shot. But that was also, everyone was like excited to go play with Built to Spill in their hometown, and they take it seriously. Now, obviously, we build enough of a reputation, people want to be a part of it, but it is still hard with a smaller budget, right? How do you convince artists in a festival market around the world, really, where the Live Nations and such can pay these large fees? But part of it is still like our pitch is like, be a part of something cool. We know that most artists want a dynamic experience with their art. So I love things like when Japanese Breakfast like read from her book, and Margot Price did the same things. We really pitch these more dynamic experiences for artists and encourage them to stay for multiple days, because a lot of artists do. And so those that lean in get it and want to come do it, and we have to pay enough to make sure they cover their travel and make some money, sure. But so we still pitch from that and
the experience.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, knowing that our artists still yearn for that. Sure, go play Coachella, get your big paycheck. I know it sucks. Come over here and we'll have a good time.
Yeah,
So,
cool.
Yeah.
And I think I'd echo that. I was booking festivals in Winnipeg, which is not on most people's terribly high on most people's must make it to destinations, and despite it being fucking awesome, but and I think that I echo that being able to do some of those extra things above and beyond so that artists feel cared for, supported, given unique experiences, it matters a lot. Because
I'll just say there is a luxury in being in the markets that we're in too, that they're not prioritizing our markets anyway. So there's not a better gig for them here.
It's you or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of, I will say that's fair. For those that from Toronto, for example, like you're competing with all this other stuff that happens there. So yeah, anyway.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive into the topic at hand, which is data versus vibes. So let's see where to start. I guess, when you're looking at submissions or artists that you're considering, what data do you actually care about? What do you tend to ignore pretty quickly? What feels like it's actually telling you something useful, or do you just like put it all aside and go full gut?
I don't want to make you keep going first. Do you want me to go first? Are you good?
Up to you.
No, go then.
So And this topic is a bit difficult for me because I'm trying not to be cynical. But yeah, basically what I look for personally is authenticity, artistry, and like community mindedness. I don't really mind if someone has 10 streams on Spotify or like a million when we consider booking them. It's more like about the show they bring, the presence they bring, and if they might be a good match with one of our local artists that they might play on a bill with and like generate community that way. So basically, I'm not looking at data personally.
Love it. So it's interesting with Treefort, and then I also do club business too. So there's a lot of different angles to look at that. Like, for like our open submissions at the festival, mostly with a festival, especially one that all of us are a curated festival that people are coming to kind of anyways. We really have the freedom to book like what we think is important and what we want to present. I would say similarly, care less about data, but do care about like try to get that's where I think as much as like we may want to resist social media, that might be the only window I have into what you're doing in your community, and we do have like an essay section that's not presented as a essay section, but that's a really actually one of the most telling places. The other thing I love to do is I love to watch live videos like an Audio Tree or a KXP, mostly for the interviews. Like I'm always curious like how artists talk about what they do and what they care about. So there's that. Like, so I agree with that. Like, so it's completely, we're trying to build community. We want people that are going to lean in. They get the opportunity. They're going to come there and try to be part of what we're doing. I will say on the data side, because sometimes I look at that with the hard ticket business, it's hard to tell. But like Spotify listens across the world don't necessarily mean they're going to sell tickets in Boise, Idaho. So really look for engagement on social media. Spotify listens are interesting to a degree, and so it's sort of like in the end, hard ticket numbers is what matters, and so that's what we're trying to figure out if that's real or not. Luckily, I get the opportunity to book small rooms too, and that's where we're just trying to build community still. But at big rooms, it's a hard thing to figure out if they haven't been to the market yet and stuff, especially in a weird market like Boise that has its own trends that don't really tie into other things. So I'll only say to our artists, those are meaningful things. It's good to like you want to look like you're active somewhat out there in the outside world, because I know a lot of great artists that don't partake in that stuff. That's great, but how does someone from afar have any idea if you're taking your art seriously and stuff? So find a way to at least tell that story through somehow, right?
Mhm.
I really like looking for people that are active in their community, like setting up shows and stuff like that look like they're part of it. Like there's other bands and yeah.
That there's a community already around them.
Yes, they're already building
Yeah.
community wherever they are.
Yeah. Even if it's a scene of three
Yeah.
bands that
Yeah.
are all doing this thing, you all of a sudden realize, okay, there's a little culture,
Yeah.
little petri dish forming. So
There's something that's powerful in me, like that they're thinking beyond just themselves. I think that's just something that is a sign that they want to build community. Right?
Yep. Totally. All right. You've both kind of like, said that the data doesn't matter too much. So half of this question is moot, but maybe if there is an example of a decision that you made based on data, and like, did it go well? Did it go poorly? What did you learn from it? And then vice versa, like, let's tell the data stories first, and then we'll tell the gut stories. So, so maybe like one example that, whether it went really well or went really poorly, like you looked at either an artist's social numbers or ticket history or whatever, or listened to an agent the wrong way.
I don't know. Like again, data is kind of like a crass word for like referring to the like legend status of an artist. But like, for example, last year we booked like one of our best shows I've ever been to. We had Beverly Glenn Copeland perform at this beautiful Friendship Center in St. John's. It was an amazing show. Probably the headliner of our festival this year. But like that wasn't informed by how many streams he has or like his perceived popularity as like a legend. Because you're just like tuned in a broader sense to like what's happening creatively and like in music. But it like I just want to get outside of like the stream data world because it's just really not what it's based on. Even though there's like sides of it, like you're saying, like you have to have a social media presence because how else is someone across the country going to know what you're doing? But like aside from that, like, wait, what? What was the question?
Yeah. Well, just like if there was a decision that you did make on data, did it go poorly or did it go well?
Okay, so if that was based on data, but the data being like mining the creative consciousness of the country versus like the like algorithm, then yes, it went well.
Awesome. Data vibes. Vibes then.
Yeah, I had a couple thoughts on it. One, the other interesting layer to this, I think, I was just thinking is I'm also a dad. I'm a dad of a 12-year-old, and like there was an artist. Have you guys heard of Madeline May? You guys heard of this artist? We were talking about them earlier. My daughter's a big fan. So that's data that like when my daughter's a big fan of something, the odds are pretty good. There's a bunch of other kids that that are. So that's been an interesting new data point for me. In fact, well, there's a whole bunch of that, but so Madeline May though is someone who streams a bunch and is relatively new to the touring market and has been good for hard tickets a bunch. And so I think the interesting post COVID, obviously shit just got changed a lot, and there's a lot of new artists that do very well on the internet that haven't figured out how to play live yet. And so that's one thing I think, try to be very careful about the data side. The interesting thing about that, even if they haven't figured out how to play live yet, a lot of people might still show up for the show, and we've seen that happen a few times. So like this is more on the hard ticket side of things because that's the only measure that I have. Because otherwise, we're curating a festival and don't care that much about how many tickets anybody can sell. And I love the freedom of that. But keeping a venue going all the time, you have to figure out how to sell tickets and how to sell tickets to different audiences and outside of your own tastes. And so sometimes data is all you have to go on. I still think like even for the festival, we base like directly in-person poll people. Like I always go like, and I'm trying to curate stuff in the metal scene, for example, which I don't know as well. I'll go find the kids in the metal scene that do know it and ask them, that's more real data for me than online data. But
yeah, that's the important data.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also just picking up what you said about like people being popular online but not having a live show developed yet. That's like a testament to the power of the live video.
Yeah.
It's like one really good piece of advice is like as an artist, have a live video that's like well produced and representative of your show that you're bringing, or that you're pitching to bring, so that people know. Yeah.
One of my other things to add to that, I always like to say, ideally one with a bunch of people watching you that,
exactly.
that doesn't look like you paid them to
100%
to be there.
Yeah. We are in an age where the data is also gameable, right?
You can buy streams.
You can buy streams, you can buy Instagram followers, you can, all of that's available. And, I think that, there's also enough messages out there now that the managers of the algorithms have tuned into that kind of stuff. So like that you actually get punished if you do it. So I don't know if that's actually the case. If anyone in here has, bought themselves 100,000 streams, had themselves their accounts get weird. I'm curious. I'm curious from people who have like walked into that wall, just as a fascination.
One piece that I was actually in a conversation, an online panel earlier this week with some other buyers and agents, and it came up. One of the buyers said when they look at streams, they actually, because they're also a manager, they actually are more interested about what he says, like the the people that are listening to the full album. And so really that top 2%. So really curious as far as like how to convert that into hard. So I think that's it, into hard tickets, is how regular, one song that's streamed 100 million times doesn't necessarily mean they're going to sell tickets anywhere. But if the whole album has a lot of streams and stuff, so I thought that was an interesting new layer of the data to look at as a buyer. Essentially.
Yeah, and I think on outside of the kind of talent buyer, programmer, curator side, as artists and as artist managers, like, if you're on the inside and you're looking at your numbers, they do give you a little window into some truths, whether they're, pleasant or not. But and I think that's a good one. Like your Spotify back end gives you like how, Bandcamp does this too. Like how many people are listening to more than one song? Like, are they just listening to 3/4 of the way through and then moving on, or are they actually investing in that? And I mean, the answer that I've never figured out is how do you then convert those people that are investing and who are connecting? Like, how do you reach them from their random internet place into actual fans? But I leave that for the digital marketing savvy individuals who are not me. Yeah. Maybe I'll tell a data horror story. It's not a horror story. It's just that I booked Common, who everyone knows Common. Phenomenal rapper, phenomenal singer, phenomenal actor, beautiful human. Hands down the best show that I've ever booked in my life. It was lights out, great. But I did it based on numbers, and I did it at a point in our festival's booking process where we had made some large offers to 2 other artists that we were really in on. That we were 100% in on these, and we put a lot of money on the table. We really wanted to land them. We didn't land them, and then it's like, okay, we need to figure something out quick. So I was like, oh, Common's on the table. This is fucking awesome. Let's do this. And trusted the numbers the agent gave me. Trusted not SoundScan. You can buy into this service, Polestar. Yeah, trusted the Polestar numbers, but also didn't consider my market well enough. And I'd come off a year where I'd booked Daniel Caesar the year before, done a lot of great numbers with Daniel Caesar. It was just as he was blowing up. We did great. And I was like, oh, Common's I'm gonna be able to follow on the heels of Daniel and do Common. And didn't do it. It didn't sell the way we needed it to. We probably offered too much. We probably put tickets too high. He's of a different era than Daniel. And so it's like, I was looking at the wrong things and not listening to my market well enough to know that, okay, like when the Roots play town, what do the Roots do? Let's look at that more of a kind of data reference. So there's a little that was an expensive lesson.
It's a good point too on the data thing. A lot of times it is more about pricing. You have an agent telling them they're worth this much, but then also how do you price it for your market?
100%.
Sometimes that's hard to figure out until you put it on sale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've missed the mark there plenty of times too.
Yeah.
for the record.
The horror stories are fun. So, and I'm kind of I'm out of the game a little bit, so I can tell them. Is there an artist that if you want to name the artist, great. If you don't, cool. Is there an artist you've booked purely on vibes where you're like, oh, I love what they're doing. I love the community they're building. I love the music they're making. This is going to be awesome. People are going to love this. And it's gone even better than you could have imagined. What's a story where it's where you've come out big winner, and the community is better for it.
I can think of so many. Luckily,
that's a good
thing. I'll use this one band, Son Rompe Para, from. I saw them in Guadalajara at a kind of conference like this, and they weren't part of the conference, but I went to this plaza and they were playing. There's to 15 of us, and they're basically a cumbia punk band. Instead of guitars, they have marimbas. So I guess I saw it firsthand, but it wasn't performing necessarily. They hadn't been to the States yet, and worked hard to help get them to the States. And that was one that crushed at Treefort once it got there. I also understand our crowd well, so I kind of know how to like. If I see something that's good live, I'm like, oh, our crowd's gonna love this, and that's a benefit to
Mhm.
having that. That's one that comes to mind.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like if an artist doesn't do well at our festival, it's like probably more on us
Mm.
in terms of like not because we booked them and they weren't a hit. It's like maybe the timing was weird or the venue was weird or like there was something else happening right at the same time. And that's like sort of a lesson we take into the next year when we're booking. So I'd say like they're all booked on vibes. And if
Exactly.
the show doesn't go well, it's just like a lesson in organizing and scheduling
Mm.
that we take into the next year.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, yeah, great.
Mhm.
Cool. We've talked a little bit about this, and I wonder if we can dig in a little bit more about the role that our communities play. You know, we've each touched on it a little bit, but what role does your community play in some of the decisions you make? Because obviously, you know, each community has trends and tastes and things, but um, do you have a little network of 10 people's, you know, 10 friends or ears you trust? There's like, okay, I'm thinking about this artist. You know, what do you think? Well, what are some of the things even beyond that? Radio stations, other organizations, other artists. What are you?
Mm.
What's that little ecosystem of community and curatorial process like?
I actually just onboarded a couple of talent buyers to my team for the first time ever. Both are one's relatively new to it and one's not. But one thing I said from the get go is you have to be a really good listener, and that starts with the music, but it's also how do you listen to the community around you and like radio. You know, I'm a radio, a community radio uh, DJ as well, but I mean, it comes back to social media to a little bit. Like I pay attention to just like what people are, you know, I just try to listen. If people are complaining, I listen to that and take it in. You know, it's like I do a lot of in-person meetings with people that have opinions or just want to meet with them, and just try to keep an open mind and try to listen. Like I said, there's a lot of different pockets in the music scene that I try to listen to too. Like the hardcore scene is another really big one in Boise right now. The electronic scene, that these are scenes that aren't in my complete wheelhouse, and so I think setting yourself aside, yeah, you know, losing loss of self, which is good as an artist in general, but
Mhm.
um, so just being a good listener is how I try to exercise that on multiple levels. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I think I'll just explain like how we program our festival, which is primarily these days through an open call that's open at anyone to apply. It's free to apply. We accumulate applications and then we put together a committee of members of our board of directors, our staff, and we put out an open call for programming committee members.
Mm.
So that's usually 2 or 3 members of the community.
Mhm.
Try and like curate that, like make sure there's someone who's really into DJs and someone who's really into hip hop, someone who's really into like hardcore, then some more eclectic people. And then yeah, we everyone listens to every applications. We rank them, then we discuss the top 100
Mm.
and try and like fit it into our schedule in the best puzzle possible. And without the applications, I think it would be a very, very different festival because like there's no way you can know about everything that's happening in like every small city or town in the country. But you can get introduced to this through the applications and stuff. So
Yeah, I'll say our open submissions are a big reason why I think we learn a lot about new things,
yeah, yeah,
because most festivals don't have that. The only way is through some narrow channel that you have to find.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the other thing that helps a lot is we have like some word of mouth that spreads. Like if a band came last year and they really liked it, they'll tell their friends, and then their friends will apply this year. There's like some bands from St. John's that will tour, like swimming played Purple City last year. They'll like tell the people they played with to apply and stuff like that. So a lot of it happens organically and then just go from there.
was gonna say we do have a committee too, but it's mostly internal. We've had members from the community on it before too,
Yeah.
which I like that model. But we discuss things. It's a lot hard to get them to go through all the submissions though.
Yeah.
Be a lot. Yeah. I always feel like any festival that is still accepting submissions it's a sign that they care a lot about community and developing artists, because like the work to listen to everything and actually consider people and be willing to take a risk on someone that might not have the track record that, when an agent comes to you with a pitch, that artist usually has, something going on, on the industry side. And so
to that note, I will say like third-party validation is really helpful data.
Yep.
And that's usually if you have a manager, or an agent, or anybody else in your camp, that is a helpful thing.
Yep.
But I also, similarly care a lot about those that haven't gotten to that point yet, because where do you start?
Yep.
So through our submissions, we've had like superstars come through there, like Hot Garbage and like 36 and Lucy Dacus came through our open submission platform at one point, and some others. But
sweet. I was gonna do this at the top and I forgot. I was going to survey the room a little bit, and then I'm gonna turn it over to some questions maybe. How many of you have played festivals in the Calgary or Alberta, Southern Alberta region? Most of you, good chunk of you. How many of you played festivals outside of Alberta, within Canada, within the United States, Europe? All right, cool. Thanks. I don't know. What do you want to know? What do you want to ask?